Hey. What's going on, you guys? We took a long hiatus. But don't worry, we're back. We killed a few people, but that's nothing to worry about.
Don't check the Colorado National Forest.
Yes, as you can tell, we are short a few bodies.
And by short a few, we mean like short like a dozen.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that so far we've had 3 other people. We had Geneva and Skylar, and we have Bella. But it just gets a little hard sometimes scheduling all these people. So we've decided that Callie and I will kind of be...
We'll be the anchors.
The front running hosts of the podcast from now on.
So if we're your least favorite hosts...
Sorry. Comment below. Comment below. Give me another reason.
That's disappointing to you, but
you know what? We're all learning and growing, and I want to be better for you. That's my New Year's resolution, actually. So
Happy New Year.
I promise we won't let you down. But also don't worry, because the girlies will still be joining us.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully often enough. They'll just be guests instead. Callie and I just want to make sure that this is a...
We're going to keep it consistent. And then whenever someone else is available, we'll thrust them right in here.
We have a lot of experience with that, so it should be pretty easy.
You know me. I love to thrust.
Ooh. You got me hot and bothered. It's just me here now, so I can't take my pauses when you say stuff like that. But yeah, we're just trying to simplify. It's just been a little hard sometimes coordinating. And... You know, the other day, actually, Geneva and I were watching a TV show. Do you remember what it was called?
Something about, like, This Is So Not My Life or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, man. I wanted to look it up beforehand, but we'll put it in the description. But she was watching this TV show from the 90s, and I was looking at it. I can't help but wonder, Callie, do you feel like you were born in the wrong generation?
When I was a kid, I definitely thought that.
Well, then at least I'm glad that you know you're supposed to be here with us now, because I agree. I wouldn't want to be born in any other generation that doesn't include you. Yeah. So then if you're happy with each generation, though, what do you think if you had no choice? Who do you think that you'd be if you were born in the 90s?
Well, I was born in the 90s.
I know. She's from the 1900s, everyone.
Yeah, I'm super old.
Grandpa over here.
But if I grew up in the 90s, like between the ages, let's say 15 and 25, because it's a 10-year gap.
Isn't that scary? If I was born in the 90s, I feel like we shouldn't idealize it as much, because I'd be 30.
Yeah. If I was 25 in 1999, I'd be 50 today.
But we don't have to worry about that. But I feel like I'd be a pretty cool 90s kid.
Oh yeah. I definitely think I would have had very curated tastes.
Yes, I feel that same way as well. I feel like I think a lot of people nowadays are like a little scared, because technology has come along and it's given us a lot more options, given us a lot more range. I also feel like, though, that maybe some of the reasons that I got excited for this topic when we first brought it up, because growing up in the 2000s, like as just a little kid, was very similar, I feel like, to being in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't think there's a big shift. I think the biggest shift is like technology.
Yeah.
Because more people had cell phones. Because cell phones did exist in the 90s. They've existed since the 80s. But they weren't like commonplace. People didn't really have cell phones on them all the time. So like so when you needed to contact somebody, you had to like go to a telephone booth, a home phone. And then if you called their home phone, they could just not be home. And then you couldn't
find them.
Well, that's when you would go to the neighborhood pizzeria or bookstore, bar, whatever was appropriate for your age, and you just go there, and they'd probably just be there. If they weren't home, they're probably at the place everyone hung out.
Yeah, I mean, you see that in all the sitcoms. You see that in Seinfeld. You see that in Friends. You see that, I mean, even they're always in this, what did you call it? You said that you found
a third place.
A third place.
And this is something that I think a lot of video essayists I watched have talked about. They've all touched on it. And it's this idea of like, if home is your first place, like where you chill, and then work is the second place where you work, the third place is a place where you hang.
Yeah.
It's where you like engage with your community. And when looking into this topic a little bit, I was reading a Reddit thread, really top tier research, Reddit.
Top tier sources, absolutely validated.
Totally, vetted by like everybody.
Truthful, honest, raw, raw.
Never read a story on Reddit that wasn't true.
Yeah, that's how I feel about everything else on the internet. I'm so glad that you have this take.
Anyway, I was reading a Reddit thread, and on this Reddit thread, they essentially were talking about how driving home from work in like the 90s, you would just stop at like the hangout spot, be it a bar, a coffee shop, a bookstore, comic book store, record store, like these like just symbols of, in some cases, consumerism, but like just like culture, and for lack of a better word, and you just like stop there, and you'll probably see your friends, or if you don't see certain friends, you'll see a different group of friends. You just kind of like show up, and you will know at least one person there, and probably more than that.
And I feel like growing up, I feel like the only thing I would do is I'd attend extracurricular activities, but besides that, I just go straight home. There was no third party place, and I think that would have added a lot because, hanging out at home and stuff, you're always looking over your shoulder. If your parents are listening, you're always,
especially as a kid,
go into your bedroom and you're closing your door. I feel like a lot of people our age grew up, a lot of people I knew inside their bedrooms. They didn't have those third party places. I feel like that probably would have added so much, and having that support system as well, because kind of like what you said, it's reliable. So if you go there often enough, you really get to know those people.
You get to know the employees. You get to know the owners in most cases, or like you get to know everybody else. And then if they watch you grow up, say you start going there when you're 14, 15 years old at the beginning of the 90s, then when you turn 16 or 17, it's been 2-3 years since you've been going there. And then it's like, oh, well, we're looking to hire. So then you get your first high school job there too. And then they just know you. You don't really need that, there's that community connection in this place. And I think the biggest thing that stood out to me, and like the differences between like now and being my age in the 90s, is like you don't text somebody or look at their Instagram story. You just like show up at the same place every day, and so do they. And you get to flex your social bone a little bit more.
And you're going to communicate better as well, because, and also you get those real experiences that people have. You get to listen to their stories, and you get to learn about updates from their life from them. It's not so filtered, because like what you said, Instagram stories and stuff, everyone knows that's just the perfect parts.
Yeah, you took 20 photos and you posted the best one.
Exactly, but instead it's way more genuine and sincere.
Yeah,
and human. Like
I think that people are capable of being fake, but I mean, if you're seeing them every single day, it's hard to keep faking it for that long.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And like what you just said about flexing your social bone, I feel like a lot of people we have a lot more social anxiety, and I feel like it's because we weren't as uncomfortable as the internet makes us all. I also feel like I definitely haven't had as much experience being face-to-face uncomfortable as the people who had absolutely no choice in the 90s.
Yeah, talking to an absolute stranger just because you had to.
Your mom's like,
because you wanted to yap.
Yes.
Like, I used to work at this coffee shop, and
back in the day,
like a month ago. It was interesting because the way my boss had it set up was to keep it very intentional. You're not allowed to work at this coffee shop. It's one of the only places I've ever been where you aren't permitted to bring your laptop, sit down and work. You have to engage. You have to read. A lot of people just work on their phone.
I was so shocked when I heard that. And then I also, one time I was looking it up on the maps and I was reading the reviews and people were so upset.
People get so mad. Like the owner, he would get yelled at. People would be like, why the fuck wouldn't you want me to let my laptop? You're losing business. Like they would just tear into him. And he's like, this is a rule and I stand by it because it ruins my business because people just come in here and they camp for the whole day.
Yeah.
And part of the reasoning for this too is you engage with your community more. This coffee shop is a pillar of this part of Denver. It's like a pillar of that community. It's been there for 12 years. They have been this very consistent place with very consistent drinks, consistent pastries, and their pricing, I mean, it is a very expensive area of Denver, so the pricing is a little bit on the pricier side, but it still is cheaper than every other coffee shop in the area.
It's really interesting how people are getting upset, and it's almost as if you like you were taking away their freedoms.
Yeah.
And there were and all of these restrictions and things like that, which is so crazy because, in fact, you think that being free and letting you do whatever you want, like staring at your computer screen, is more important than like standing face to face with other people. Like, in fact, he was actually like kind of trying to help everyone. Be a little bit free of.
When I told people, I'd be like, hey, I'm so sorry. We do have a no laptop policy. The amount of people that actually thanked me, they're like, that's actually a really good rule. I'm so glad. I had this one guy who almost started crying because he like had one of those little affirmation books. He ordered his food and then he sat down and he saw the sign that said he wasn't allowed to have his laptop out. So then he opened his aspiration book and it literally asked him to be more mindful while he was eating. And he was like, this is all lighting up. It's so perfect. It's so wonderful. It's so amazing.
This is a sign from God.
Yeah. And he was like, thank you so much. But I think that it's nice to like be in that like community space. And I think that the reason why we glamorize and romanticize the 90s a lot is because we think of like going somewhere. We think of going to a bar in the 90s, going to the record store, the CD store to buy CDs, or going to concerts, going to the comic book store. I kept seeing the comic book store pop up on Reddit. People are so into comics and stuff like that.
And I was, when I first thought of this, I was like, oh, I'd be a completely different person. I'd be a better person. I was only looking at the idyllic version of it because I was saying like, I grew up in the 2000s, like just a little kid. And I loved that, right? Like people were playing out on bikes and they were out in their yards and I had webkins and because they still had computers and stuff in the 90s, but it was, you know, you took your turn. You had time. There was a limited amount of times. And I think I latched onto that so much because I was a kid. Of course, everything's going to be so much better when you're a kid, but actually growing up as a teenager in the 90s, if everything else was similar in my life, if I had a pretty good childhood growing up, and then when I became a teenager, I moved. So, but if I kept the same family, the same house, the same high school, I actually think that I don't think that I would have had a better time. I think that I would have been probably way lonelier.
I mean, maybe it would have been easier to make friends because, all the other kids at the school, they all go to this one park after school and you could have just went there.
But there's also like kidnapping was pretty rampant in the 90s. It was scaring parents a lot. And my mother is like a pretty anxious, paranoid person. So like I said, if I kept the same family I have now, I think maybe I'd be closer to my siblings. I think that we both, like my brother and I would probably be both relate on the fact that we're super bored. And then we'd find a solution to that together. And I think in that way that I think we'd be closer, maybe some of those relationships, but also like, I think I would just spend a lot of time at home. And like growing up, I didn't leave to go to a lot of places. So I think I would, if I just had to stay at home without the technology that I had when I was 14, I feel like, and this is not a very good thing, I feel like I really did rely a lot on the internet to make me feel better. I do think the 90s version of that, I do still think I'd be stuck in my bedroom because I think, or maybe I'd find some, I don't know if I'd be able to find a different safe haven if all I did was just go straight from school to home. I think maybe I would.
You don't think you would have like tried to hang out with the other high school kids at like wherever the kids were hanging out?
I did try, but like I said, my mom was like a very
paranoid
anxious person. So
and
she'd
the
be
80s and the 70s had a lot of serial killers.
Yeah.
So I think that there probably were plenty of like anxious parents in the 90s that were like, there was a lot Ted Bundy and I just want to take some pictures.
Just want to take some pictures. I wish I could help you right now. I know. Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer. Thank you. I just want to take some pictures.
Like I had my phone on me. My mom could track me. I could call my mom. She would still be just as anxious. She wanted me to go to school and then she wanted me to come home. So even, and also the town I lived out in the middle of nowhere. And there was not, the only thing we had to do was like
Twin Peaks,
Target and McDonald's and things like that. And maybe, yes, kids would flock there, but I still, like I said, I think those like interpersonal conflicts that are present in my life now still would have been present then. But I do think that maybe maybe I would have been a little bit lonelier, but I think in turn then I would have dived a little bit deeper into, I was thinking I'd probably be a little more punk.
No, I would be so grunge. I would have been so much into like the indie rock scene. I would have gone to those grassroots like venues and like, because I was thinking about the biggest thing with being a teen and a young adult in the 90s is you have all this time because you're not scrolling on Instagram. You know how much of my teenagehood I spent on Instagram or Pinterest, just scrolling. Like I would have spent that time reading, writing, listening to music, probably socializing because I was a very social teenager. You want to sit down and yap? I'll yap.
Yeah.
I've been a yapper since day one.
That's exactly how I feel. I think I would have gone to those. I think I would have gone to
probably would have met a
record store more. I probably would have gotten CDs. I probably would like. I was telling this to you yesterday. I think that I feel like people ask me like, "What's your favorite song? Like, what bands do you like?" And I have a hard time naming them or having anything come to mind because I'm overloaded. Because I have like over 1,000 songs liked on Spotify. I have like 18 playlists. I have so much music on my phone, but I don't want to talk about it. But
I have more than that. That's why I was like, those are child numbers.
Child numbers.
I have like 18 a year.
But if I had to go pick up a CD and look at it, look at the album cover, go through the songs, pay for it.
You could also listen to them at the stores too.
Yeah.
I watched the movie Empire Records. They have like little listening booths as well. So you could listen to half the CD or you could sit at the record store for 3 hours and listen to 4 CDs.
And you'd find something that you like and you'd remember their name because, okay, let's say you couldn't buy it that day. You'd go back and you'd look for it. You'd remember the album. You'd buy other albums. You'd compare all of them. You'd pick your favorite. Then you'd go back and you'd be like, can I find another artist that's like this?
Yeah.
And you would have a tangible collection. You'd remember. It would be in your hand, you know?
And then I think also too, like if let's say you found like some CD for like Nirvana and you were like, I really like Nirvana. And so you go to the kid working at the register and you go, do you have anything like Nirvana? And the kids probably listen to every fucking CD there. So they would then probably recommend, oh, these other bands are very similar to this band that you like. Like it would be a person recommending it, not like Spotify being like, oh, you listen to that Sabrina Carpenter song? Here's 4 more Sabrina Carpenter songs, some Olivia Rodrigo and Chappell Roan. They're all popular.
And they're all very, yes, you're right. And then maybe you'd make a friend as well. And then you'd go to those punk shows and we'd be right back to like that community aspect where
it's like, oh, you like this band? You probably like this band. They're having a show tonight. You want to go? It's like $5. And so you go to these like small venues because that was something else I was reading about on Reddit.
I don't know. What?
On Reddit.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, really scholarly.
I'll have to look.
They were saying
later.
like you go to these grassroots venues, that's what they were called, and like it's a punk show, it's a rock show, it's some like obscure band that some kids made, and then they're performing for $5 at some tiny little venue. Like that's how a lot of these like 90s and early 2000s like pop punk and grunge artists came up is they performed at these small venues.
Right
And that's
place,
how people
right time.
got discovered. Yeah. So you could go to these shows for these really good bands. Yeah. I think music is a huge part of the 90s that gets romanticized, because I think the first thought about the 90s was, I'd be really into the music scene.
And besides that, I'd probably be, besides music, I'd probably be like sitting in my room writing like, maybe I'd be writing lyrics or angry poetry, or I'd be reading more books, or I was saying maybe I'd be in a band. Like maybe in order to get my mom to get me out of the house, I'd like be like, don't worry, my friends, we're going to go to band practice. It's something productive. Saying maybe I'd be in a little band.
Maybe you'd meet them through the high school band. Since you were a drummer,
exactly.
You could meet other people in your high school band that are like, oh, we have a band that we made. We need a good drummer. You can drum.
But also they'd be bored too. And they'd be like, let's start a band. You know, you ask people, hey, you want to start a band? They're like, sorry, I can't. I'm too busy. I got to go play CSGO, or I got to go scroll on TikTok. Or
I got
like
so much TikTok to do.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. I can't do that.
The options now are unlimited. But back then it's, if you really needed each other to help with the entertainment.
Yeah, your entertainment was your community and your friends. So I think that's a big difference, I think, growing up then versus now.
But also, I think you're right. I think we were born in the right generation.
No, I think I should have been a millennial. I think I should have been one generation behind.
I hate to break it to you, but sometimes I look at you and I see millennial. So actually your dreams are not so far away, Callie.
Why would you say that to me on this day?
That's what you wanted. You just said that you wish that you were.
I don't wish I was a millennial. I wish I got to do clubbing.
Are you gaslighting me right now?
Club. Not like a millennial, but like I wish.
Once again, we're romanticizing just the little small pieces of.
But yeah, there's pieces of it that I think I wanted. Like
absolutely,
the clubbing scene was so much better back then. The
hair,
the job market.
Oh yes, the housing market.
No, I just think about like jobs and how like, I think the other thing I thought about when you said like, who would you have been if you were a kid in the 90s, if we were teenagers and young adults in the 90s. So I was like, oh, maybe I'd be in publishing instead of film. But also film was a big part of the 90s and the 80s. And like film has been a huge thing for decades. And so I wonder if, maybe I would have watched Seinfeld and been like, yeah, I'm going to go into TV.
It's a huge part of that entertainment aspect as well. Like as much as people were there for each other, people consumed plenty of media still.
They did. I mean, you didn't have social media, but you did have the television, and every household has had one since the 50s.
Yes, and CDs.
And so I think that maybe I'd be in publishing, but that's also something I was aspiring towards in the 20-teens when I actually was a teenager that I decided against. At like 19, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to finish this degree. And I got a different one. So like, I think about like a show, like I watched Ugly Betty the beginning of this year, I believe. And I was like, I wish I wouldn't worked for a magazine, but magazines aren't a thing anymore. No one reads magazines. I couldn't make any money or go anywhere with that. And I think that publishing sometimes feels like that as well. Like no one reads. The only reason people read is because of book talk these days.
Yeah. I think because a lot of the times I have imposter syndrome sometimes. Like I feel like I'm not allowed to do some things or stuff like that. We have just such infinite opportunity. We're so much more apparent to all of our missed opportunities. So there's just too many options, and the internet really showcases everything else that you could be. So I do feel like who I would be is just a little bit more maybe confident in my career and who I want to be. And
yeah, I think you said to me this morning, you would have been less well-rounded.
Yes. Because I was saying that I was like, I'm kind of a jack of all trades and master of none.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel bad, but then you finish it for me.
Yeah. It was like, you're like, yeah, jack of all trades. And I was like, well, the rest of that saying goes, jack of all trades, master of none, better than a master of one.
So I guess I don't know if I would have been as much as I am now. I don't know if my identity would include so many aspects. I think maybe I'd be really strongly one thing, but it's kind of awesome to have the opportunity to be so many.
Because maybe I would have wanted to go into TV as a 90s kid. And then I would have been like, you know what? Yeah, there's too many bars of entry. They women in that industry, it was even worse than it is now. And so I would have been like, maybe I'm just going to do books, because I've always wanted to write books, and I will still write books nowadays. So I was like, I'll just do publishing, because it would have been easier. And then I remember too, as much as we can romanticize the 90s, the bar of entry for a novelist, I want to write science fiction, fantasy. Being a woman in science fiction and fantasy in the 90s was very difficult for people to take your work seriously. People just thought that women should write romances, or like young adult books weren't really a thing until we were teenagers either too.
It really is just a decade. So I really feel like I wouldn't be too different. I think maybe I just watch a whole lot more Rugrats. A whole lot more Seinfeld, maybe.
Do you want something crazy?
I probably shouldn't have.
I've never seen Rugrats.
It's okay.
Not an episode.
There's time.
Never seen an episode of Rugrats.
It would be, you better hurry up, because when you're like 30 years old watching Rugrats, that's going to be weird. So better get on that. There's a movie.
I still watch kids TV these days. I watch kids TV a lot. I've rewatched Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is a kids show.
That's not kids TV. That's a masterpiece.
It was a masterpiece in kids television. It's a masterpiece in kids television. No, I've always loved TV and like building a long form story like that. So I don't think I'd be too different in that regard. Probably would have just had more books under my belt.
Me as well. I think so too. I think they would have shoved more books down our throats as well. Instead, I feel like my mom would have been like, "What about this? What about this?" But when I first was diving into this a little bit more, I saw a lot of pessimism. Can you say
pessimism?
That? Thank you. It sounds better when you say it anyway. But I was seeing a lot of that, and man, I wish I could remember who said it. I'm pretty sure it was on Cure, actually. But some random man from Puerto Rico said that we used to all be these little micro universes. And
that's
now,
so poetic.
I know, that's why I remember micro universes, like interacting with other micro universes. Like kind of like what we were saying about how would we dive deeper into our passions. And I feel like my identity would be stronger instead of being so spread thin into different places. And now we're kind of trying to exist in this macroverse, and it's like a little bit suffocating, and there's not a lot of wiggle room, and
we have the burden of choice.
Yeah. And it really does feel suffocating sometimes. And that's my first interpretation when I was going into this. But then at the same time, I don't think I'd have as many memories as I have now. I don't think I'd have as much communication with you and my friends. I don't think we'd get to hang out as much. I think you're right about having that like third party place, but a lot of us are busy, which is why some of the girlies can't be on the podcast with us.
Yeah, everybody has a different work schedule.
Yeah, and I feel like now I text pictures of what I'm doing in my day. I ask Skylar how her day is, and she fills me in 2 seconds. Or we get videos and we get posts and things like that. It's, I do feel like, I was scared that I'd probably be a lonely 90s kid, but I'm glad that I was born in the 2000s a bit, because I was able to have a lot closer relationships with like the people in my life. And it's kind of, instant gratification isn't necessarily always good, but in regard to people, I feel like it's pretty amazing.
And I think that reflecting on a time when there was less technology is a great way to sort of take what you want from that time and leave the rest.
Yes.
Like I was reading on Quora that like there was whole fashion trends that were cultural appropriation. And like the way in like women's rights was still pretty far back from what it is today. It was 25 years ago, it was 1999. Like it was, we've had a lot of progress, like body types, diet culture was even worse back then. Like a lot of our social progress since the 90s is a good thing, I think. And I think being able to take aspects of the 90s, like third places and having intentional conversations with members of our community and like connecting with people intentionally, I think that those are good things to carry with us from the 90s. Maybe like collecting the CDs of your favorite artists, or collecting your favorite movies and logging off of social media when you feel it negatively affecting you, and actually talking to people rather than like just engaging with content.
Yes.
Those are great things to take from the 90s and bring to our now, while also being able to engage in how life is now. There are way more like good things, I think.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot more positives. And maybe they felt that way in the 90s, but now it's nice because we have the opportunity to take and leave as we choose.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think I am going to buy more CDs and
you should join a band.
Yeah, I should read books. Maybe I will start a band up again and write angry poetry and lyrics.
I mean, I've been writing angry poetry and lyrics since the dawn of time.
But now
no one's ever going to get to read that.
Since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
So you're telling me you're not a millennial, you're a boomer?
Before that.
What's before a boomer?
The silent generation. And then before that, I don't know.
I'm just going to call you a boomer from now on. That's
fucking call me a boomer.
You just told me that you've been writing angry poetry since the beginning of time.
You think the boomers have been alive since the beginning of time?
Sometimes they fucking act like it.
I hate to break it to you, but they haven't.
I'm glad that we thought about this because now I have a little bit more gratitude. And I am going to start collecting CDs. They just cost a whole lot more now.
Ugh. No, I'm going to collect DVDs. Like when our Wi-Fi is out and we're like, what the fuck do we watch? We have no Wi-Fi.
We got that Blu-ray.
It's like, you want that Blu-ray player to work. And I think that that's something too that why we were getting all existential about it too, is like, if Spotify just broke and like went bankrupt and the entire system just gone.
Yeah. All that.
Then
years of collecting
way more than 18
curating.
Playlists. Way more than 18 playlists would just be gone.
All those years curating.
Hundreds, almost probably thousands of songs just that I've been curating for years. Gone.
In a poof.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed listening. I hope that you guys think a little bit about who you would have been in a realistic way. And maybe in a little romanticized way so that you can take those little pieces and apply them now.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of opportunity.
I think that what we're going to do after this is we are going to explore our city.
Start a band.
We're going to start a band, explore our city, and try to find our third place.
Yes.
So that our house is no longer the third place.
I think that's such a easily accessible.
Yeah.
It's something that we can absolutely conquer. I think it would add a lot.
Yeah.
So if you see us out in the town, don't mind us. We're just looking for our third place.
Say hi. That's how they did it in the 90s.
Yeah. And then we'll say, sorry, we're busy. Kidding. We'll probably say hello too.
Yeah. I'll be like, huh?
Yay. Well, welcome to season 2.
Season 2 of the Girlie's Nights podcast. This time, more than 2 episodes.
More. We promise.
We promise.
But be patient. Yay. Okay. We'll look forward to more Girlies in the futures.
We'll include more of the Girlies. We just wanted to get like a first episode out.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a first, this is where we're starting.
So thank you for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Or night. Because it is a Girlie's Night.
Girlie's Nights podcast.
We need a conclusion.
Bye. Bye.